Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Colonel Devendra Sharma. I am from the Indian Army. I am a colonel. And I am the Chief Military Personnel Officer representing MONUSCO here as the gender focal point. The first part, in the next about 12 to 15 minutes, I'll take you through a fact file on Congo, just to make, perhaps for some of you to refresh, for others, maybe a first time, to give you a fact file on Congo. Thereafter, we'll see a brief history of how Congo has evolved and where it stands. How did the UN come in and for what purposes it came in? And what is the state now? What is our mandate? And finally, the organization before we look at gender mainstreaming. Right. Next, please. Yep, next, please. Now, a brief overview on Congo. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Have we pressed something wrong? Well, I'll need help. I'm sorry. Right. Just to keep it going, the Democratic Republic of Congo, as most of you are aware, is in the central part of Africa. It's a country that extends 1,900 kilometers by 1,900 kilometers. Oh, where have I gone? I don't think so. I've come to the last slide. Yep. Okay, next, please. This is the presentation 2 that has come on. This presentation 1, 2, 3. Just put the first presentation, please. Sorry. Congo extends 1,900 by 1,900 kilometers. It's a state that has been devastated by what we'll talk of the Second Congo War. It lacks basic infrastructure. It has a population of about over 71 million. The population is the 4th largest in Africa and about 18th largest in the world. Its infrastructure and economy was completely destroyed by the Second Congo War. It has immense national wealth. The natural resource wealth is pegged at roughly 23 trillion US dollars, which is the combined GDP of the US and the European Union put together. It is among the top 10% of the countries which has natural resources of the world. It's very rich in cobalt, casterite, diamonds, and gold, spread over various parts of the country. The strife, yes, okay. Yeah. I'm not touching that. As you can see here, Congo is in the central part of Africa, and the inset gives you the contours of the country. It's 1,900 kilometers by 1,900 kilometers, and you can imagine the distances that are involved. DRC is surrounded by 9 neighbors. It has a coastline of roughly 37 miles, 64 kilometers. And you can see the 9 neighbors, starting from the Republic of Congo, which is informally referred to as Congo Brazzaville, and DRC is referred to as Congo Kinshasa. You have the Central African Republic, Sudan, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, and Angola. As you're all probably aware, it's an old Belgian colony. Thank you. It's a government is a semi-presidential government. The spoken language, the official language is French. Though there are dialects, various dialects in various parts of the country, spanning from east to west. You have the Lingala, you have Shiluba, you've got Swahili, and many dialects of these which are spoken. The currency is Congolese franc. A time zone is +1 to +2. +1 is in the east and +2 is in the west, GMT. The Human Development Index in the UN report of 2011, it has been ranked 187th last. It ranks as the 5th poorest country in the world. Yes. It has the 3rd largest water stream, which is the Congo River, spanning the breadth of the country. It's a major transportation system as well as in the country. As I'd already spoken, it is among the top 10 countries in terms of reserves of gold, industrial diamonds, copper, cobalt, castrite, and coltan. 34% of the coltan reserves present on Earth are in DRC. And 10% of the copper reserves present on Earth are in DRC. It has very, very poor infrastructure. The infrastructure was completely destroyed in the Second Congo War. And as you can see, of the 1,45,000 kilometers of roads, only 2,500 are paved or metalled. You can see the airports. There are 235 airports, of which only 25 airports have got a paved strip, which is a concrete strip. This is a photograph of a few of the airfields. I'm not sure how clear they are. But you can see some of them are paved, still others are absolutely mud strips. For administrative purposes, Congo has divided itself into 10 states and 1 neutral city, which is Kinshasa. As mentioned this morning, there are 2 live volcanoes in the eastern part of Congo. The first one is Nyiragongo. Now, what you can see is a smoking top of the volcano, which is clearly visible from the eastern city of Goma. And on a clear night, you can even see the reflection of the lava against the clouds. It looks red at night. It has a cycle of 10 years. Last it erupted in 2002. It's a live volcano. Next, please. The second is the Nyamulgira volcano. Now this, unlike a normal volcano which erupts from the top, has fissures on the sides. And the eruptions are from fissures. As recently as 6th and 7th November night, one fissure erupted, and the second fissure erupted on 8th, 9th December night. In the eruption of 2002 of Nyiragongo, the city of Goma was completely affected. The runway had gone. Even today when you go to Goma, you will see the molten lava lying around the city of Goma. Next, please. Now, a very brief historical perspective. Right, from 1877 to 1908, in the Treaty of Berlin in 1885, Congo was given to King Leopold. He called this as the Congo Free State. At that point of time, motor cars were just beginning and rubber was in demand. Quotas were formed and rubber was extracted. There was brutalization of the population to the extent the limbs were cut. And the army had to be sent in to control this quota regime. Then, in the early 1900s, there was pressure by 2 gentlemen from Britain, Roger Casement and E.D. Moyle, which led UK, amongst other Western powers, to force Belgium to take Congo over. And the country was then known as Belgian Congo. What you see in the inset is the Parliament of Belgium. Right. Then the political crisis between 1960 and 65. In 1960, the first elections were held in which Mr. Patrice Lumumba of the National Congolese, of the movement of the National Congolese, won the elections. The parliament elected Mr. Joseph Kasavubu as the president. There was internal turmoil, and 30th June 1960 is the date that Congo celebrates its independence. For those of you who have been to Kinshasa, we have the 30th June Boulevard, which much as Buenos Aires, you have the 9th June. We have a memorial there. And because of this feud, in 1965, on the photograph on top you see Patrice Lumumba, and below you see General Joseph Mobutu Sese Seko. He overthrew the president and took over, and then there was a tyrannical rule of almost 30 years in which Joseph Kasavubu was the president. Next, please. From 1971 to 1997, when Mr. Mobutu fled the country, it was ruled by Mr. Mobutu. There was only a single party system, elections were held, he was the only one, and he got elected. Now, the entire armed group thing centers around the natural resources of DRC. Mobutu's government was guilty of severe human rights violations, repression, and corruption. Corruption was also called as Zaire sickness at that point of time. In 1971, the country was renamed Republic of Zaire. In the early part, in the 60s and 70s, Mobutu received support from the Western powers, ostensibly to avoid communism coming in. But as USSR disintegrated in the 80s, the Western support waned. Political opponents stepped up the demand for reform, and consequent to the genocide that took place in 1994 in Rwanda, President Mobutu was forced to flee the country. Next. We now see the spillover effects of the Rwandan genocide. The Rwandan Hutu militias were overthrown by the Tutsi-led government in Rwanda, and they were forced to flee into Zaire, which is DRC. Rwanda Hutus launched a campaign against the Congolese Tutsis in the east. Uganda and Rwanda invaded Zaire under the cover of small Tutsi militia to fight Hutu militia and overthrow the government of Mobutu, ostensibly to take control over the natural resources. This expanded coalition of two foreign armies under the leadership of Mr. Kabila managed to overthrow Mobutu, and they marched into the capital Kinshasa. Mobutu was forced to flee the country. Next, please. And then came the Second Congo War between 1998 to 2003. As you can see, there were 8 nations involved and 25 armed groups participated in this war. The opposing sides were the RCD, supported by the Rwandan and the Ugandan government. And on the other side was Mr. Laurent Kabila, initially supported by Angola, Namibia, and Zimbabwe, and later joined by Chad, Libya, and Sudan. The fighting continued through the center of the country, as you can see the lines drawn. On the northern side, you can see forces led by Uganda, Rwanda, the MLC, the RCD. And on the south, you can see Mr. Kabila is supported by Angola, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. It was a devastating war which had a telling effect on the country. In July 1999, the Lusaka ceasefire agreement was brokered, and thus stepped in the United Nations. In August 99, mandate for 90 US peacekeepers to be deployed was given. 79 peacekeepers were deployed in Kinshasa. 39 peacekeepers were deployed in other neighboring countries to ensure that the ceasefire is adhered to. In Feb 2000, mandate was there for about over 5,500 UN peacekeepers to monitor the ceasefire. The fighting continued through May, June 2000. It was in the line of Kisangani that the fighting was taking place. In Jan 2001, President Kabila was assassinated by one of his bodyguards. His son, Mr. Joseph Kabila, was sworn in as the president, and the UN pullout plan was brokered between DRC, Rwanda, and Uganda. In September 2002, the Luanda Agreement came through, with a peace agreement between Congo and Uganda, and in October that year, 20,000 Rwandan soldiers completed their withdrawal of Rwandan forces. Thank you. Just to give you an aftermath of the war. Please keep clicking. There were about 2.4 million people who were displaced. There were about 380,000 people who fled to the neighboring countries as refugees. The paper handed to you in the morning in the folder gives the deaths at 5.4 million, but conservative estimates put this death at about 3.8 million. So the question comes, why protection to civilians, which is a priority mandate as far as MONUSCO is concerned. If you see the scale of devastation, there was complete destruction of the economy. The infrastructure was also completely destroyed. War contributed to sexual violence. There were children of rape. There were women who were ostracized, having been raped. Women and children were particularly adversely affected. It's a country known for tropical diseases. About 1 million people were affected by HIV/AIDS. In the IDP camps, the sanitation conditions were such that there was common epidemics of cholera, malaria, etc. Human rights, the negative armed groups that continued to persist on the eastern side continued with their human rights violations. There's abject poverty. As on date, 71% of the population is below poverty line. They have lack of access to basic facilities like even clean drinking water. And 6.8 lakh children, by conservative estimates, have lost either one or both of their parents in the conflict. And of course, rape has been used as an instrument of violence, and thus the mandate for protection of civilians. We now see the United Nations and DRC. The first time the United Nations came in was in 1960. It came in as ONUC, which is United Nations Operations in Congo. The essence of the operation was to maintain law and order and to prevent Katanga, which is a southern state, from ceding. It achieved its mandate by 1963, and in 1964, the mission was closed down and the troops withdrew. At the maximum, there were 20,000 troops in Congo, UN peacekeepers. Then came the period in 1999 onwards. This slide shows you the build-up top to bottom with 90 military observers being authorized, and thereafter progressively building. The mandates are listed, the Security Council resolutions are listed on the left side, and as you go along, you see that as on date, we have a mandate of 19,815 troops, 760 military observers. There's a police component also authorized. Now, next. Now, just to have a look at the salient features of the mandate. The mandate has got two parts. the mandate has got two parts to it. The first part is protection of civilians, and the second part is stabilization and consolidation. I have highlighted, and in fact, I'll go through it. Effective protection of civilians is the first part, which includes UN personnel, installations, and equipment. The operative word here is support efforts to bring perpetrators of justice by establishment of prosecution support cells and assist FARDC implement UN system-wide protection strategy, JPT, joint protection teams, community liaison assistants, joint investigation teams, surveillance centers, women protection advisors. Create an environment for safe return of internally displaced persons. Support the government of DRC in military operations against the FDLR and the LRA and other militant groups. Support the completion activities of DDR or effective reintegration of these negative armed group personnel into the army, and support DDRRR of foreign armed group members. The second part is a stabilization and peace consolidation. It is to support the government of DRC to strengthen and reform security and judicial institutions, assist in strengthening military capacity, including military justice and military police, in line with the Army Reform Plan of 2010. Support reform of police led by the government of DRC. Develop and implement a strategy for justice reform in consultation with the Congolese authorities. Assist government of DRC in consolidating state authority in territories freed from armed groups. Support government of DRC efforts to fight illegal exploitation and trade of minerals. Assist government of DRC in enhancing demining capacity, and support the organization and conduct of national and provincial local elections through provision of technical and logistical support. What I want to flag here is, please, the responsibility of security rests with the government of DRC. The UN is in a supporting role, and therefore you will notice in all the bullets you will find support to government DRC, enable the government DRC. We are in an enabling role and not the lead role. In order to complete this mandate, the mission is organized as follows. You can see on the top is the Secretariat of this Special Representative of the Secretary General. Then we have the DSRSG, which is the rule of law, under which comes, right in blue color, the gender issues and sexual gender-based violence unit. Then we have the DSRSG Humanitarian Affairs. We have the Division of Mission Support, and finally the force, headed by the force commander. And I will talk more of the force when I speak on role of military in the third part. I now hand you over to Elsie to explain the mandate on gender issues. Thank you.